Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the Mavericks side of things in the NBA Finals as they go down 0-3 to the Boston Celtics in what seems like a series that should have been closer, really, but the Celtics have just been running away with it. Not to say that they have no chance, but they're just about out of chances here. We'll see what happens tomorrow in Game 4 back in Dallas, now that Luka is back in the lineup. But we're going to finish up our NBA coverage today, talking a little bit about the coaching situation in the NBA, specifically with the Lakers, talk a little bit about the Cavs situation as well. But before we get into all of that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else watching around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw that in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to talk a little bit more about the Lakers head coaching search, do some updates. Last time we talked, the Lakers had been rejected by Dan Hurley. He rejected a 6-year, $70 million deal. Why he did that, there's a lot of reasons. He said in an article today that it wasn't to get leverage, which is kind of something that people had been running with. I agree. I don't think. I mean, sure the leverage helps, but I think it's just a better situation in UConn than it is with the Lakers, which is kind of crazy. But you have to look at this Lakers team as a team that, its main draw, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis will be there, but you don't know what the situation is with LeBron James. He hasn't decided whether or not he will come back. He hasn't opted in or out to his player contract. He's got 16 days to do that. The draft is coming up. And I feel like that's kind of a deadline. I feel like you want to have a coach before the NBA draft happens, get to know those players, get to know the scheme, know what your whole roster is going to look like. I feel like it's a very important part of being a head coach GM combo, knowing what player is going to work best in that head coach's system. But it's going to be very interesting. JJ Redick is back at that number 1 slot, and this weekend, reportedly, he is going to have an interview with the Lakers. So we'll see how that goes. He obviously is here covering the NBA Finals. He's been doing a lot of media stuff, and the main talking point with JJ Redick head coaching candidacy is the fact that this is a LeBron hire, right? And I don't think LeBron is a part of this hiring. I think this is a appease LeBron hire, not a LeBron is saying we need to hire him. Because I think the Lakers are concerned that he's going to opt out of his contract. And I think that's definitely something they're taking into account. Obviously, you want to keep your star happy. And in basketball, more than really any other sport, these stars have a say in what the head coaches are, who the head coaches are, what the head coaches are doing. It's a similar situation out there in Cleveland where they're, going to pick a head coach that Donovan Mitchell likes because they need to build around him. There's been some tension in Cleveland this last offseason with some of their guys. They came out and said, we're basically running it back. We're not going to trade anybody. But Donovan Mitchell needs to be happy with that coach because he was talking about getting a trade. And now it seems like they're zeroing in on Pelicans assistant, James Borrego. So that again, nothing is confirmed, but that just seems like where the Cavaliers are looking. Back in LA, there's a lot of different places they can go. Kenny Atkinson has been a name that's been thrown around a lot in NBA circles. He almost accepted a head coaching job pretty recently before deciding to return to the Warriors as their assistant coach. But I feel like now is about the time you can get it. You can sense the end of that Warriors dynasty. Curry, as good as he is, can't carry that team anymore. And he's a name out there that I think would be really good, although this Lakers situation is not very good. We've already kind of discussed it a little bit, but LeBron might not be there. You don't know what they're going to do with their draft pick. They're considering drafting Bronny James, which is not worth it. I know he's declaring for the draft and some team will take him, but if any team takes him in the first rounds, it's not worth it. He's a solid player. He has great defensive skills and he has the ability to become a solid role player in the NBA, I think. But taking him in the first round, I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, he's a guy that was coming off of the bench at USC, averaged like 6 points a game at USC, and now the Lakers are thinking about using a first round pick on him to keep LeBron there. And I know keeping LeBron is the big draw, but a draft is a great way to get young talent, and you don't have too many assets as the Lakers. If you are the Lakers, do you really want to waste that on a guy that will keep LeBron on your team for one, maybe two more seasons? We don't know how much longer he's got. We don't know how much longer he's going to be in the league for. He won't be much longer. He's already 40. He's talked about wanting to play with his son, and that being the end of his career. So we don't know where this goes from there. But JJ Redick is back as being the number one option in LA. And do I think JJ Redick is going to be a good head coach? It's hard to tell, right? I think he has the ability to be a good head coach, but the situation that he's being put in with the Lakers, it's going to be tough for any coach to be considered good, right? If he has success, people are going to say, "Oh, he had LeBron James, he had Anthony Davis," right? If he doesn't have success, he's going to be the fall guy, and that's not a good situation for a coach to be in. The Lakers haven't made it out of what would be that play-in tier in 12 years. They've only been higher than the 7 seed once in the last 12 years. And this is a team that, while they went through their own struggles, they've had LeBron James for a while. They won a championship, but it's tough. It really is a tough place. You're going to get a lot of criticism, and especially as a first-time head coach, he is going to be really scrutinized with everything he does. He has a great basketball mind. Obviously, we know that. We've seen him be great with the media, really break down basketball. He has a whole X's and O's podcast with LeBron James, which is a big reason for his candidacy. I think that kind of is clouding the judgment a little bit. I think he would make a great head coach regardless of his relationship to LeBron James, but relationships help you get further faster in this world. So it's one of those things that it's a similar situation to Bronny, right? You don't want to you want to take a look at them on their own, and you don't want to take LeBron's sphere of influence into account, but it's kind of impossible to ignore. I think JJ Redick can be a good head coach. I don't know if the Lakers is a good situation for any head coach, let alone a first time head coach. And I do think it's going to be very tough for him to win over the crowd, the fans, especially since he very publicly is the second choice. Dan Hurley. They offer 6 years, 70 million. Are they going to give JJ Redick that big of a contract? Are they going to say, "Hey, you are a second choice, so we're going to pay you like our second choice"? If I'm JJ Redick, I'm not taking money that is less than what they offered Dan Hurley, because the Lakers are kind of desperate right now, and I don't want to be put in that situation. If this is my one and only tryout in the NBA, the Lakers aren't the team I want to go to. I'd almost rather go to the Cavaliers. But that's another thing. We don't know where he's going. uh, Eric, host of the wrestling podcast here, with GSMC, says the fact that Bronny James is not a first round draft pick seems odd. So much expectation because of his father's legacy would be some big shoes to fill. Will he be a top player in the NBA once drafted? Like I was saying, I don't think he's going to be. I think it's more. I think he could be a solid bench player, but I don't really see star potential in him. He's a great defender. I think he'd be a good 3-and-D guy. But it's it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see what it's gonna be interesting to see what Bronny James turns into as a player. Kelsey says, "How about my Celtics? They dominated. I mean, it was a weird game. They were down and then they were up, and they were down again, and they almost blew it. But they got very lucky with Luka being out. And I talked a little bit about that in our first two segments there, what the Celtics have to do. They're primed to sweep right now, and I think a lot of that hinges on the health of Kristaps Porzingis. If he plays Game 4, I think they'll sweep. If not, I think they take it in 5. But this is a good Mavericks team, and I don't want to count them out of any game. I don't think they're bad enough to be swept in the finals. So we'll see what happens. But we'll we'll see. Uh, but that's all I've got for basketball today. We are going to talk a little bit more about the NFL as minicamp continues. There's more players not showing up to minicamp. Fines and punishments being handed out by the NFL in regards to free agency. We'll talk about the Falcons and Eagles tampering results that the NFL has come back with today. We will take a look at all of that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.